The United States is the second largest trading partner to South Africa, so therefore we need to have top-class representation in the US, and that is something that we are still working on.
It's extraordinary times for Pretoria and Washington. Both cities' embassies are now awaiting new diplomats after SA-US relations recently took a turn for the worse. If the Trump administration gets its way, a media man whose son was recently pardoned for storming Capitol Hill will become the US ambassador to SA. Whilst here, a few big names are now doing the rounds to replace our ousted representative, Ibrahim Rasool. Joining me next to wade through this diplomatic dilemma is our senior News 24 journalist, Amanda Khoza.
That's the only reason why the administration chose that guy. It's somebody that's going to aggressively put America first in Africa, in South Africa.
And later in the show, the Boks are banking on a new sponsor, the health minister's dropping a Dagga decision, and Nana the Rhino overcomes it all. To stay tuned to The Lead for every edition, please hit the follow button on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Well, my name's Graham Robenheimer. Let's chat all this and more right here on The Lead on News 24. The Trump administration's tipped media man Brent Bozell III to replace Ruben Brigitte as ambassador in Pretoria. Whilst here back home, the DA's been campaigning to have party stalwart Tony Leon fill in for Rasool in Washington. Now, to colour in the lines of this developing story, we joined now in our Johannesburg studios by senior journalist Amanda Khoza. Amanda, how are you doing?
Hi, Graham. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. What are you working on today? I know we've all got deadlines. We're very, very busy. It's a Wednesday, so the news cycles is quite intense. What's on your agenda?
Today, the two big stories I'm working on is Zimbabwe. So there's a potential military coup in Zimbabwe. Sure. And so we've just been asking the presidency as well as our international relations and corporations ministry, how prepared are we as South Africa for a potential military coup, obviously because of the voice that we play in the region in SADC and the potential repercussions and consequences of whatever's happening in our neighboring countries. So that's one. And then the second one is the nomination, obviously, that happened, the news that broke last night, that the Trump administration had nominated its candidate to replace Ruben Brigitte, who resigned in January. So we're just trying to find more than just what we've seen on X, and just to try and find out why this man was picked for to suit the Trump administration.
That is the main question on everybody's lips at the moment, Amanda. Of course, US President Trump, he now wants Brent Bozell III in Pretoria. That official nomination's gone through as per your reportage last night. Well done on that. That's now gone to the US Senate's Committee on Foreign Relations. It seems like it could well be a done deal by all accounts, but of course this has to go through the various official processes. For the longest time, though, there was the speculation, Amanda, that the MAGA movement's Joel Pollak, that he would take the post, or he was vying for the position. There was a lot of bluster from him about South Africa on X. So what do we know about Bozell III at this stage? There seems to be quite little information in the public domain that speaks to any relations with South Africa or any experience with South Africa. I mean, he's got a history scholar background and he's often in the US media. I mean, that's sort of our understanding at the moment, right?
Yeah, that's true. So what we know at the moment is that he's a huge media guy. Just earlier this year, Trump made him the CEO of it's called the U.S. Agency for Global Media.
Sure.
And so what we know from the research that we've done is that he is a marketer, he's a publisher, activist, businessman. He's got a lot of titles. And so based on X, it sounds like he's somebody obviously who's deep in Trump's camp, and supports his views. and is somebody that's going to be obviously driving the Make America Great agenda in South Africa. Even though we know that Joe Pollock was the guy who had raised his hand, I'm not sure whether we're surprised or not that he didn't get it, but obviously he was one of the people that were trying to push this Make America Great agenda, even though he's got historical ties to South Africa and was peddling some misinformation, anti-South Africa stances on X. He didn't get it. I'm thinking that the nomination is a nod and it's almost like a done deal. I did ask the US Embassy today whether the nomination obviously means that he is the guy that's coming. But my assumption is that I think this is the guy that's going to replace Brigitte to try and mend relations with South Africa. It's also going to be interesting because their charge d'affaires, which is like the second in command, the lady that was there, which she came in December. I mean, she came late last year. Her name is Dana Brown. She recently resigned because I think she was protesting against what's happening between the Trump administration and Pretoria. So her replacement just arrived. So this nomination comes after this. It looks like they're filling the positions. It's quite critical so that the lines of communication diplomatically, I think that this might ease. I'm not sure how, but it may ease the communication because you'll actually have an ambassador who's in South Africa who's going to be actually seeing what is happening on the ground in South Africa. And perhaps he may also see that maybe there are no mass land grabs and that the Afrikaner community is not as portrayed as AfriForum and the Solidarity Movement. So he'll get to see for himself what exactly is happening. Perhaps they will also talk about trade. There's the issue of AGOA coming. So there's a lot at stake. While they've made their appointment, remember, we still need to make an appointment that's going to replace Rasool, which is like a contentious issue. Like you said in your intro, the name of Tony Leon has come up, raised by Helen Ziller, the DA Federal Chair Council. The name of Deputy Minister of Constitutional and Justice, Andries Nal, have come up. So, I mean, the presidency did say that so many people have come up and raised their hands to replace Rasool. We all know what happened. His faux pas, criticizing the Trump administration, which led to him being booted from the US. So it's going. This is. I can't emphasize how important this moment is, and I'm hoping that Bozo is going to come here with a clear head and with an open mind. And really want to engage, because the problem that one of the things that Tony said yesterday, Mr. Leon said, yesterday, was that we can't be shouting from the rooftops. We can't be using megaphone diplomacy. We really need somebody who's level-headed, who's going to have an engagement. Look, we don't have to agree. But we need to respect the US's new foreign policy and posture, and they need to respect our foreign policy posture. We're not saying, I'm thinking that the government is saying, we're not saying that agree with us, but respect us in the same way that they've called for us to respect them. So yeah, that's where we are.
Sure, it is a lot of different moving parts, and you've so excellently put a lot of this together. You're alluding to, of course, your Tony Leon interview, and that particular article on the front page of News 24 is ex-ambassador to Argentina, Tony Leon, says he's not eyeing Rasool's US post. That's that one. And then, of course, from last night, Trump nominates Brent Bozell III as ambassador to South Africa. Those articles still floating around on our front page. Now, let's quickly hone in to Solidarity and what they were saying about Bozell III. I thought this was quite illuminating, Amanda. Jaco Kleinhans, he's a public liaison for the Afrikaner Workers' Rights Group, and he's saying that the well-known conservative author, thinker, and activist that he describes as Brent Bozell III is somebody who's fought left-wing bias in the American media for decades, a well-known champion of conservative values. I mean, it's no surprise to me that off the bat of things, in the immediacy of the announcement, of course Solidarity knows a little bit more about Brent Bozell III because of the delegation that obviously went to Washington. Now, as the media, we have to sift through a lot of the noise to find out the facts and to hopefully build a more comprehensive background about what might be possibly our next ambassador here.
That's true. And I'm not 100% sure whether AfriForum and the Solidarity Movement is overplaying the situation. Firstly, when they went to the US, we don't know who they met. It's possible that they know more because maybe they met and maybe they suggested him. But also, I think it would be careless for them to think that Trump is making these decisions based solely on what they are telling him. The Trump administration is making these decisions because it's putting America first. Listen, Bozo is not here to fulfill what AfriForum and the Solidarity Movement want. I think they are here to put America first. They must not forget that. That's the only reason why the administration chose that guy. It's somebody that's going to put America first in Africa, in South Africa. I think that's the agenda. That's the main reason why they chose Bozo.
And Amanda, I think it's so well put together in terms of your piece. You've highlighted something that happened quite recently, and that's Bozo had been on X, formerly known as Twitter, and that he posted that his son was in fact one of the pro-Trump supporters who were granted pardons by the Trump administration for attacking Capitol Hill on the 6th of January 2021. So that's some interesting context there to take into the discussion. Let's look a little bit at your discussions with Tony Leon, a very senior diplomat for the Democratic Alliance. I mean, of course, Helen Zille was going to come out and say that Tony would be the best man for the job after his stint over in Argentina, etc. But what does Tony say about the current situation? Because obviously it is the president that has to make the decision, and it's up to his sole discretion as to whether or not who replaces Rasul in Washington. Tony was a little bit hesitant, I think, and he was saying, and a bit guarded, and he was saying, it's up to the president, and only if I'm approached will I give my real view about possibly undertaking the position, right?
So Mr. Leon is very level-headed. Even when you just speak to him, he's very where are the facts? This is beyond my domain. So he is very much a diplomat, and he comes politically correct, if I can put it that way. So in our discussions, he acknowledges and he welcomes Zille's generous offer or nomination or
a campaign push. It's basically the DA trying to leverage a bit of power.
Lobbying for me, but he's like, no. Actually, I just want to. Before we even got into the interview, he was like, "Hey, I just want to put it out there that I'm not campaigning and I'm not nominating myself." He's got some very interesting views about South Africa and how we are managing the situation. He criticizes the former ambassador Rasul, saying that, as an experienced diplomat, it's diplomacy 101. He says, think twice but say nothing. I think we even saw how South Africa responded to the Bridgetty incident. The former US ambassador comes to South Africa. We are the host country, remember? And then he makes these outlandish accusations about us arming Russia, going to the extent of saying that he's willing to, put his neck on the chopping block. So now we are on the frenzy investigating this because we know the serious implications this could have on South Africa and our world standing. But despite all of that, the former international relations minister, Naledi Pandor, doesn't expel him. She gives him a tongue lashing, but we didn't expel him. And so what we're seeing in the US is extreme. But anyways, he doesn't let him off easily. He says, it was unacceptable. His utterances were unacceptable. He shouldn't have said, despite how you feel. And he's very strong about diplomats don't lead with emotions. You should be level-headed. Your job is to go and put South Africa first, whichever country you're in. Yours is to put South Africa's foreign policy position, try and secure trade deals. That's what ambassadors do. You really shouldn't be. It doesn't matter how you feel. Everybody can see. The whole world is in shock at this new posture that's coming, and it's actually an aggressive. He called the ANC's called this a hostile posture that we are seeing from the White House. But you cannot say that. So he was very open about. He shouldn't have said that. But anyways, we need to rethink the way in which we are approaching our relationship. And if we are trying to reset, it's got nothing to do with the race of the candidate that the president wants to choose. It's all about competency, credibility, and somebody who's going to put South Africa first. He was very, very emphatic to say, at the moment, the race issue is not important. We need somebody who's going to go out there and is going to be palatable to the Trump administration.
And I think it's also illuminating, just to add to that conversation, that of course Rasool himself had previously stated during the seminar where he had made the utterances that eventually got into the hot water that he's now in, that he felt that it was very important that South Africa came with like a bit of an offering to the Trump administration at some point or another, to put something on the table to say, how can we sort of charter a new way forward, that South Africa should be prepared around that time. Because as we now understand it, of course, from international relations, that apparently Rasool was ready to basically pull the trigger on moving into a new era with the Trump administration to say, this is how we're going to chart a way forward. So apparently we were on the cusp of that. As we wait for the new name possibly to be put forward and for the president to make any sort of announcement at this stage, I thought let's just end off on this. And even now that we understand it, that it's not Joel Pollak that got the tip to be possibly the US ambassador to South Africa, we can't ignore the fact that he in fact was Tony Leon's speechwriter in the early 2000s. And I thought this was super interesting. In Jewish Report back in 2022 had quoted Pollak saying that, quote unquote, Tony Leon is one of the most brilliant political thinkers. That's what Joel Pollak said. What does Tony now say about Joel and about speculation that he might have been speaking or saying certain things to Joel in the run-up to him possibly becoming an ambassador? Tony's seemingly sort of distanced himself and rubbished some speculation, right, Amanda?
That's great. In fact, he called it nonsense.
Sure.
He says this conspiracy, this giant conspiracy that he's working with the White House together with Joel and whispering things to Joel is utter nonsense. It's not true. While he historically, they had a very good relationship. He says the guy has a very good work ethic, very professional, knows what he's doing. But that was like 19 years ago. I mean, that's a long time. And he says, realistically, Amanda, Joel has moved on and he's chosen this. These are his views. And I don't subscribe to that. He also says, that's as far as it goes, is that we had a relationship 19 years ago and that was it. I respect that while he worked for me, we had a really good relationship. The guy was great. But now there's no truth to talks that he's whispering something to me or to him. It's not true. So he does distance himself from Pollak. It's true.
Amanda, I thought we'd just end off with this. We were chatting a little bit before this conversation about this multifaceted story. You as a journalist, you've been plying your trade for a couple of years now, right? How do you view the journalistic landscape at the moment? There's a lot of questioning about the quote-unquote mainstream media at the moment. It's come under a lot of scrutiny. Here at News 24, we have cutting-edge investigations into all spheres of government, into all spheres of society. You finding your place in all of that at the moment? For me, it's about telling credible stories and good storytelling. What does journalism mean to you today?
I think covering the presidency, you really need to be refined in your craft. You literally cannot afford to get anything wrong. Well, said by a statesman, minister, but I mean, it goes across the board, whether you're a crime reporter, you're an investigations reporter, it doesn't matter, multimedia reporter. Now more than ever, I think journalists need to be cautious. In the era of X and Elon Musk, you have to double check and triple check everything, especially if your name is trusted and you work for a trusted organization like News 24. We have to be super accurate. If you're not sure, rather just leave it or wait for confirmation, because I just feel like you'd be helping the likes of Elon Musk, you'd be helping the likes of AfriForum and the Solidarity Movement to peddle information that's not necessarily accurate of the situation that's happening in South Africa. We have an extra responsibility as journalists to make sure that we get it right. It's not always about being first. I know we do want to be first. It's always about getting it right. You will always be, you will be remembered for getting it right.
And Journalism University students, I hope you're listening to the lead on News 24 because you heard it here first and accurately first by Amanda Causa, one of our senior journalists here in our Johannesburg newsroom. Amanda, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to having more discussions with you in future. And next time we'll just make sure that we've got proper barista coffee nearby to keep having these discussions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Graham.
To our trending topic now, and we have two in this edition, so get ready. First is an update from our previous Rugger episode. The Springboks have a new main title sponsor after MTN's sudden exit. First National Bank, which has enjoyed some ad placement on the back of the green and gold jerseys, will now be front and center. News 24 understands this deal is worth 150 million rand a year. We can also reveal that Pick n Pay is taking up F&B's old spot on the back of the jersey, costing around 70 mil a year. SA Rugby president Mark Alexander says they're grateful MTN backed the Bokke during their 2017 slump. Some of you in the News 24 comment section have been joking that it'll be strange soon to see the Pick n Pay box in their so-called Checkers 60-60 alternate colors. That story thanks to Sport 24's Kanyiso Chwaku. In our second trending topic update for this edition, in a bizarre move that's bound to confuse this growing industry, the Health Ministry is doing a U-turn on its latest gazetted regulations barring the manufacturing, import and sale of hemp and cannabis food products. President Cyril Ramaphosa recently summoned Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, telling him that we need more public participation on this matter in a bid to especially protect young consumers down the line. So now Motsoaledi is set to rescind the ban he quietly put through earlier in March, which threatened a fine or prison time for selling, amongst other things, Dagga biscuits and sweeties. Cannabis interest groups threatened a possible court interdict against the health department for a lack of public comment, but the department says it just wants to protect consumers whilst working on a so-called grand plan to eventually regulate these treats into industry-accepted health products. Meanwhile, Mzansi's Zol dispensaries continue to mushroom, a story the lead will be closely watching in future. And finally, well, she would have spent her life in solitary confinement because at just 2 years old, Nana the rhino calf was facing a grim life, about to be sold and shipped to China. That's when, in 2010, the founder of the Rhino Orphanage in Limpopo mustered all the money he could to save Nana. Today, 15 years later, this rhino has been mommy to 5 calves, all thanks to the sanctuary's conservationist Ari van Deventer. He recalls Nana as tame as a dog when he met her. Now she's as wild as a rhino, and she may not have been had Nana not survived a poacher's attempt on her life in 2013. Her friend and surrogate partner, though, Mike, wasn't so lucky. Still, today Nana's celebrating the March 16th birth of her latest little one, a healthy baby boy. For more, be sure to check out Tato Gololo's story trending on our front page.
Looking to get lost in a new book? Well, this month's free audiobook for News 24 subscribers is
Children of Sugarcane. It's a novel by senior journalist Joanne Joseph.
detailing how indentured labourers were brought from India to the Natal colony in the late 1800s.
Here's an excerpt from her book.
The first few days I walked in my mother's shoes, I learned how strenuous her tasks had been and what little reward they offered. I had to ensure the smooth running of our household, getting up before sunrise to begin preparing my father's breakfast, usually a meal of roti, accompanied by braised potatoes or lentils.
From our diplomatic dilemmas to dropping Dagga decisions, that's been our show, and we want your feedback. Mail your comments and voice notes to thelead@24.com to be included in our next edition. Be sure to follow our show too on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Daily episodes drop on News 24, Spotify and Apple Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. My name's Graham Robenheimer, and so long as there's news, we'll have the lead.